Do you have a hard time memorizing all of your passwords? Do you find it frustrating to come up with secure passwords every time you make an account for a website? What if I told you that there was an easier way? My name is Travis Zito, and today me and my partners, Ashton Powell and Hunter Goodrow, will be showcasing our project, the Secure Password Manager. To use the Secure Password Manager, a user must first create an account. When they get to the website, they can click on Register, fill out their information, sign up, and then they will be prompted with a QR code for two-factor authentication, which they could scan with Google Authenticator or any other app of their choice. Once that is done, they could sign in with their information and then enter their one-time password shown in their Authenticator app. If all goes well, they will be signed into the website. After the user signs in, they will be taken to their dashboard where they can start creating new credentials. Here we see the user generating a strong password, which they can copy and paste into the field. Another feature under the Generate Password tab is the ability to generate memorable passwords, which are still random but more memorable than a completely random string of characters. However, if old habits die hard and you still want to use an insecure password, you of course can just type that password into the field. Once a user has created a few credentials, they can view all their credentials from their dashboard, which will have links to edit and delete each credential. If a user wants to view or edit their account information or delete their account, they can navigate over to the Account tab. One last neat feature that I would like to highlight is the password security check, which scores your passwords based on a number of criteria, such as password length, characters used, and if that password has appeared in a list of commonly used passwords. For the majority of this project, I spent my time working on the authentication system, developing forms on the front end, such as registration and login, and developing the routes on the back end for registration, login, and two-factor authentication. As well, I worked on some account management features, which include editing the account username and the account email, as well as displaying the account information when you click on the account tab. And aside from that, I worked on some documentation for the README file, as well as deploying the front end of the application on render.com. These are the technologies that I use, and the group also used these as well. For challenges, the two biggest challenges for me were trying to just learn a bunch of new things all at once. I had never used Flask before, never used Google App Engine before, and have used Tailwind CSS, but it's been so long that I might as well have had to learn it from scratch. So learning three new things at once was definitely a hurdle to overcome. And the biggest challenge for me was 1 week. I had a ton of issues with cross-origin resource sharing once I started to develop the app in a production environment. That just caused me so many headaches, and honestly, that was a rough few days, but I overcame it, did a lot of research, and was eventually able to get things to work the way I wanted it to. And finally, for lessons learned, I learned that it's better to teach yourself as you go when learning something new instead of just trying to do a bunch of research like beforehand and then you end up just wasting your time learning things that you don't really need to know. And finally, I used some libraries just to speed up development for things that I didn't really want to spend too much time crafting like a completely new thing. For example, for loading icons and toast notifications in React, I found some good libraries to use for that, which just saved me a bunch of time that I could then spend developing the actual core features of the app.
Thanks for sharing our highlights in your development, Travis. My development, most of it was focused on the backend routing, database setup and interaction, cloud hosting, and the password generation features you just saw demoed. Myself and our team utilized Flask through Python for backend routing, MySQL to run our user credentials database, and Google App Engine to deploy our backend and host in the cloud. The Flask utilization was great as it provided a central place for us to route our backend, whether it be the initialization of the database, CRUD operations, DDL and DML execution, encryption, and or session verification. This routed to our MySQL database hosted in the cloud, providing CRUD capabilities for our users and credential tables. Similar to Travis, I made sure documentation on the backend was up to date so users could test the database locally and ensure all packages are installed in the correct environments. I also kept a pulse on the Google App Engine settings and deployment to make sure our front-end implementation had operational back-end capabilities. A few challenges I encountered were ensuring that throughout the developmental stages that our Google App Engine was functioning, as we individually were using local environments until we pushed and merged our code. We encountered various errors that did not appear locally, so a lot of collaborative debugging, reading documentation, and reviewing logs was necessary to ensure we were on a sustainable path. I had previous Google App Engine and cloud deployment experience through other courses, but I still had to go back to the basics and make sure I understood how everything was set up and it wasn't just copy and paste, and to make sure I knew it well enough to communicate to our team so we could have a unified understanding and vision for our project. Some lessons learned for myself included brushing up and ensuring my GitHub branching and version skills were up to date. As most of my development had been independent local, I wanted to make sure I didn't cause any issues with my teammates' development, so I had to grow my confidence and skills on team planning and communication. I also had a few opportunities where I wrote code that was not dry. I did not utilize appropriate libraries. So refactoring library research was something I grew in. My teammates provided constructive feedback and criticism, namely in our code review number one, and I was able to update my code based on their feedback and provide a better implementation. Wrapping up my development section, I want to highlight a few components inclusive of the CRUD operations in our UX design marked in the blue boxes, handled through the backend and database operations, alongside a few snapshots of our backend cloud hosted database, logging the front end users and credentials, sample delete user and credential function in our Flask, and the execution of the password generator and review function.
Thanks for sharing your development, Hunter. For my contribution, I'll start with the Flask REST API routes. So starting with credential management, so this is primarily used on the dashboard and allows the user to create a credential, which is a post route, get credentials, which is retrieving them and placing them in the table, put or update credentials, and delete credentials. There's also a password generation route, which is a get route to generate and return passwords, and also the password review route, which is a post route, which will analyze the password and provide a security assessment to that password. Moving to the front end for React components, I developed the dashboard, and that mainly has a table which displays the user's credentials and is dynamically updated. The create credential form component is used when adding a credential. The edit credential form will be populated when a user clicks the edit button and can be used to update that credential. The generate password form will submit that password generation request and retrieve a password. The password check will submit a user typed password for review. Other notable works, I standardized the styling for the React application at the beginning, standardizing the color scheme. Technologies used, so this is going to be the same as my previous partners here, so React, Flask, MySQL, etc. Challenges, so learning Flask and Google App and the Google App Engine platform was a bit of a undertaking at the beginning, but it was a fun challenge. And then also coordinating front-end development with the back-end REST API was difficult at times, but manageable. So that's this meme here. And then lessons learned: planning and team coordination really does save time in the long run. So in conclusion, to wrap things up, What we currently have with the Secure Password Manager is an application that allows users to register, sign in, and securely store their website credentials in the encrypted vault. It protects users through two-factor authentication by requiring that one-time password authentication. Offers the ability to view, create, update, and delete credentials via the dashboard. Offers users strong and unique password generation while also giving them peace of mind with the password security check features. And lastly, the user's data is secured on Google Cloud and encrypted. So some features that we thought would be a quality of life improvement in the future if we were to continue this work would be one major one is to implement the account recovery feature. So we were thinking about an email password reset that requires the user to use their one-time password code. Another one is the credential search box. So if a user has a long list of credentials, they could search to pull up results with that. Also maybe a favorites flag that when set could pin the credentials to either the top of the list or maybe a separate favorite section just for ease of finding credentials that you're using consistently. And then lastly, a stretch goal that we didn't get to was to implement the browser extension. So this would be used to autofill credentials on websites and would be a really nice quality of life improvement. So that's it for our presentation. Thank you for watching. Bye.